Welcome to the Chirosation, where chiropractors share their stories and lessons learnt in practice. The intention of the Chirosation is to provide resources and a community that will help chiropractors realise their innate potential. So join the Chirosation today. In this episode, I have a conversation with Dr. Brian Lanoue from Powerhouse Chiropractic. I've been following Brian for years, so I'm really excited to bring him on and hear his story. In this conversation, Brian shares his journey through chiropractic, what inspired him to start practice in the heart of Vancouver, and the lessons he has learned. I really enjoyed this one, and I even learned some new parts of Brian's story. So without further ado, enjoy this Chirosation. Good morning and welcome to the Chirosation. Today I have a very exciting guest, Dr. Brian Lanoue, all the way from Canada, talking about his experiences in practice so far. Welcome, welcome.
Hey, glad to be here, Ben. Thanks for having me. Very much appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure. And just to get us started off today, what got you into chiropractic in the first place?
Got me into chiropractic was just my experience through university. So I'd originally wanted to be a physiotherapist because that's I don't even know why. In high school, it kind of got into my head somehow. So just after high school, I went and got a job at it was a combined physiotherapy and chiropractic clinic, and they dealt mostly with workplace injuries and car accident relief. So very much a rehab model of care. And what I was doing there was doing muscle stim, setting people up on traction, doing all sorts of those rehab modalities, and then either the physiotherapist or the chiropractor would come in the room, and I wouldn't know actually what they did. They never kind of showed me what either of them do. I worked there for about a year and a half, and it was just it seemed like the same thing for both types of patients. So whether they were seeing the physio or whether they were seeing the chiropractor, I just did the same stuff.
And is that pretty common in Canada?
Definitely more common in Canada. Outside of that New Zealand bubble of chiropractic awesomeness. So I came out of that experience with the physiotherapists that were working there, telling me, not really worth, becoming a physiotherapist. They didn't like where they were. None of them own their own practice. They're all just, employees at this other clinic. And so it wasn't. It was a fine enough experience to get that one-on-one experience working with patients, and that part I very much enjoyed about the job. But came out of there not really knowing again what either professional does once they're one-on-one with the clients in the room.
Nice. And then what made you want to bridge that gap? Was it those patient interactions that you had where you thought, this is me, I want to do this, I want to study it further? What was that kind of, Goldilocks moment which said, yes, I want to do this? Yeah,
so then I started at one university in a pre-physiotherapy program, and that's part of the time I was working there. I was doing all my prerequisites for that. And then I ended up transferring university, so I went to another school, and it was at that school that I met my now partner, Taya. And the first conversation we had, the night we met, was actually about chiropractic. She was volunteering with Dr. Jamie Richards, the Life by Design CEO. And the early days in his office, she was the student volunteer or the help, and the only CA they had at the time, working one afternoon shift one time a week. So she was telling me about her experience there, and that I should come in and get checked, and it'd be this awesome thing, and she was really passionate about it. And I was like, oh man, I've worked for chiropractors in the past. So, classic, why would I need to go in there? I'm a healthy 21-year-old. What would I? Yeah, I don't have
back pain, neck pain, or headaches. Why would I need to go in, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So we've got Taya to thank for all of this, huh?
Yes, definitely. So we both finished university. Still really wasn't on the radar. Then we moved out from Ontario, which is kind of central Canada near Toronto, out to Vancouver, which is on the west coast and the closest to New Zealand that you can get while still living in Canada.
Yeah.
So we moved out here. Taya was actually applying for nursing programs. I found a job in the field that my undergrad was in. So I was working at the hospital. She was working at the major university out here. And yeah, so we knew that wasn't the end game though. We got the good jobs, the pensions, and all the safety and security that most people are looking for. And not that it wasn't enough for us, but we definitely weren't fulfilled by what we were doing. And then after being there for a bit of time, you're able to see what your advancement opportunities were, and where people that were 10 to 15 years down the line, where they had started and the positions they were in currently. So again, looking at all those prospects, it wasn't that inspiring.
But also would have been quite an interesting perspective for the both of you, having been in that allopathic model, working within hospitals and seeing what their style of care was for patients.
Definitely. And I was in the trauma department. So
wow.
As far as, medical care goes, that's kind of the rock star stuff there. The people coming in the emergency department with, overdoses and, open wounds and, all that burns.
You see all the crazy stuff.
All that
there.
stuff. Yeah. So as far as working in that model goes, that was probably the most exciting and the most, where, lives actually do get saved.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, so again, having that perspective, then going into, chiropractic, was definitely valuable. And, just knowing how, that side of the health field works.
Absolutely. Well, being able to view those two sides of the coin, I think is really, really beneficial. So then what made you move from that? So moving to Vancouver, obviously, what inspired you then to jump all the way over to New Zealand?
Yeah. So, we kept in contact with Jamie, and he kind of kept putting we would ask so many questions about chiropractic. And by that time we were both under regular care with a chiropractor here in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. And so I started seeing the changes, and every time I'd go in and get, my checkup, I'd be like, what's happening? Why is this doing this? Did anything happen after that? And just having all these, kind of philosophical questions that, led us to getting more involved with, the chiropractors here in Vancouver. So they actually started inviting us out to their, EPOC groups, which is, they basically have monthly seminars where they brought in speakers from, around the world, into Vancouver. And so we started seeing all these great chiropractic speakers. Yeah. So that paired with, Jamie still, asking him questions and having some personal contact with him, definitely, drove our decision towards chiropractic. And so we went to, one career talk with Brian Kelly, who was the president of the New Zealand College at the time. And there was three of us there, me, Taya, and one other prospective student, again, another pre-physiotherapy student. And after that talk, we kind of just decided okay, New Zealand, it's a little bit further west than we've already traveled. So, just continue on the journey and we'll kind of see what happens. We knew through our research the stateside schools that we might apply to. We had already ruled out going to CNCC in Toronto. So, it was kind of like New Zealand or bust. So let's just apply, see what happens. If we get in, we'll start sorting everything out from there.
Good on you. Well, that's very adventurous. And obviously it all worked out. So then in that kind of flow of the timeline, when did the idea occur to you to go, right, we want to settle in Vancouver, we want to open up a kick-ass practice by ourselves and just start smashing this dream? When did that kind of happen in the timeline?
Yeah. So, we had big influences from, the chiropractors we already knew, the ones, we're currently getting care with, and the ones we've gotten care with in the past. So we kind of saw how their practices operated, and it was very much in line with when you would hear these chiropractic speakers, the kind of practices they would describe of being not only, helping lots of people and getting great results and seeing lots of families, but also, being, abundant practices for creating, a lifestyle that, that seemed great. So, kind of put all those pieces together. And yeah, even we had about a year from when we applied to the school to when we actually traveled. So we spent the year while still working in Vancouver, just kind of, lining up our chickens in order to make the big move. And yeah, it was during that time that we really started crafting our vision then, about what we might want. And at the time we said, okay, well, we're going to move to New Zealand, have no idea what that's going to be like. We've never lived abroad before. I had only really traveled to, the States on, different occasions. So I didn't have any, other cultural experience under my belt either. So like, okay, New Zealand, Australia, we'll go down there, see what's up, and, maybe we'll settle there. Who knows at that point? But we definitely started crafting the vision of the kind of practice we would want, at that time. And, whether we were going to be associates or open up our own, all those questions were still unanswered. There was still a lot of limiting beliefs, that we definitely had at the time. Probably weren't as confident and ambitious as, we kind of are now. But it, definitely provide. We went to New Zealand with an open mind as to, what the future might hold.
Absolutely. But I mean, what I think is wonderful, because I definitely didn't have that when I went and had my chiropractic experience at college, is you already had previous experience of chiropractors and a lot of different, styles of chiropractic itself. Because I've literally just grown up with the New Zealand model, which is heavily philosophically based, very much around that wellness lifestyle model of chiropractic, and really had very limited experience with the more pain relief style of chiropractic, which is pretty prevalent everywhere else in the world, right?
Definitely. I would recommend, just to know how good you do have it, just to do a quick tour of some of those offices. You might find stuff that you just didn't know existed, and then you might just be like, no, I'm definitely in the place I want to be.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, I've been following Jamie Richards for a long time as well, and his Life by Design stuff I think is fantastic, because it really incorporates a lot of what the chiropractic message is, but presents in a really palatable way for the general public. But
definitely.
I mean, and obviously with your background, that probably quite aligned with what you're already looking at. So did you know that you were going to be a Life by Design chiropractor? And for those who don't know at home, could you briefly explain what that is?
Yeah, definitely. It was Life by Design. We had, Dr. Jamie Richards had come up with it for his own practice with his brother Joel, and they, wanted a systemized way to teach the practice members everything they were doing. So they were already doing, nutrition seminars. They were already doing movement-based seminars. And, they wanted a way to, make that something that happens all the time. So created this model. And then as soon as they created the model, they'd already had a radio show at the time. So, they incorporated that into the radio show. Other chiropractors started listening, and then all of a sudden, they started getting, a groundswell of support from other chiropractors who, were like, how do I become a Life by Design office? And, for them, it was, that wasn't even in the initial plan. It was just them building the brand of their own practice. So, it kind of, grew organically, where, a lot of offices, originally started, in Ontario and the surrounding cities around them, became certified. And, then they met some other mentors and people who got involved in the, creation of, the content and, actually building Life by Design into, a business model that supports, chiropractic practices, and, does coaching and everything throughout the world.
That's excellent. And so just to kind of jump back a little bit. So obviously when you were going through college and gaining that experience and kind of thinking, where do we want to settle? Do we want to be an associate? Do we want to open up our own thing? Which are all questions that we ask ourselves when we do get to the end of that marathon qualification. What made you think, yep, Vancouver's definitely where we want to settle? yep, we definitely want to open up a Life by Design office, and this is the way that we want to create it. And then also, which I really admire, is you had the patience to wait and make sure it was done right, rather than saying, right, just let's just bootstrap it, open it up, and kind of gung-ho from there, is to say, yep, no, we definitely want to open our doors, but we want to do it in the right way. What led all of that to happen?
Sure. So yeah, after, arriving in Auckland and living there for a while, we decided at least Auckland wasn't going to be the place for us. We did take our time to travel around the country. We did go to Australia. I'd been over to DG a few times, so met some chiropractors, got some job offers in the second and third year, even at that point. But it was, just not it wasn't the fit for us. So after being there a while, we knew we wanted to come back to Canada. Basically in Canada, Vancouver's the only kind of city we wanted to settle in. So it was just a natural choice that, we knew we didn't want to go back east to, where our family lives. There was, other than that, Canada's pretty sparse. So, you only have a few kind of cities to choose from. Yeah.
Unless you want to live in the mountains, right?
Unless you want to, sorry?
Live in the mountains, right?
Yeah. In the mountains or in the prairie deserts.
Yeah.
So we picked the place where we wanted to live, and definitely we had been applying, all the Life by Design principles for our own health. At the time when we started under chiropractic care, 21, 2 or 3, somewhere around there, we were in university. We weren't really living the healthiest lives. So, it's our first foray into adulthood. So I kind of had to figure out, my health was definitely declining a bit, and I had some challenges. So I had to figure out how to, actually take some responsibility for myself, live as an adult, and get myself healthy. So most of that time we were living in Vancouver, the first time is, when we were experimenting with all the steps. So, we were under care. We started eating by design, moving by design, and doing all these things and applying all the principles in our life. So, but in my mind, it had to exist together. You had to do all those things. You couldn't just do one or the other. So in my mind, chiropractic and Life by Design just naturally, went together, and it was never separated for me. And like, I said, if I want to be healthy, I have to be doing all the things. I can't leave one of them out.
Which makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes absolute sense to me.
Exactly. So for us, opening a Life by Design practice just made sense. And if, we didn't become certified with Life by Design, we would have just still been doing the same thing, just not calling it Life by Design.
That's fair enough. And then just for the listeners at home, what are some kind of top tips and tricks, some kind of big lessons that you learned in deciding to open up your own practice? What were some real kind of things that you'd wish you'd been told of before you started?
Well, pretty much anything we've done, both Tan and I, has been done with extreme naivety. And any project we've taken on, including chiropractic college, and actually we were in New Zealand. We actually started a company together, which we ran semi-profitably for about a year and a half before we had to sell it. But then, everything we've done has been not knowing what the next step is. So it's literally just been taking the first step. What do we need to do today? And then we'll kind of figure the rest out as it goes.
Nice. So I bet that would have brought up a few hurdles upon the way, right?
Yeah. So there's been lots of challenges and, lots of things that, we've, brought upon ourselves, I guess. But, when you look back at it, you're like, oh man, how did that, even, fourth year in chiropractic college, you're like, oh, how did I survive that? How did I, push myself to go through that? But at the end of the day, you're like, but I did,
Absolutely.
And you're a little bit stronger each time you move through one of those situations or one of those time frames. And it was no different opening the practice. It was on a different scale. So obviously, we had that vision, built, and we intentionally spent a lot of time, especially in third year and fourth year, really crafting that out and getting into those nitty gritty details. We actually got a dog in first year of college and spent, so we spent almost an hour a day, walking the dog at, some of the beautiful parks there in Auckland, and, spent that whole time just talking about, what we, wanted our vision to be. We didn't very often, fall into just, moaning and groaning about, the challenges of school at that time. Although, obviously sometimes you have to decompress, but, we did spend most of those days talking about, really vision casting and talking about what we wanted the future to look like.
That's cool.
So it's really,
do you feel like that kind of gave you a bit of resilience? Because then, like with any kind of hurdle or obstacle in our way, if we can figure out a way, right? As chiropractors, we're quite resourceful and we make it work. But do you feel that having that vision and also having that person to share that vision with made you quite resilient and made you be able to overcome those hurdles a little bit easier?
Yeah, if I didn't have Taya to kind of bounce ideas off of and do, even just going through school, you need someone to, kind of be your wingman a bit. So, it doesn't have to be, a romantic partner, obviously. But, you need support from other people around you. So that can be, a single person. It can be many people. But yeah, having that person to bounce ideas off of and kind of having that mastermind mentality, definitely helped us out, and we credit much of any success that we've had so far to being diligent with that and actually taking the time to dream and cast this vision and think it all up. It all started with a thought.
Yeah, and then now bringing it to reality, and very excited to talk about this. Would love you to share a little bit about current practice life. Obviously, I follow you on social media, and I love what you're doing with patient experiences, holding up the boards, writing down what they've been experiencing through chiropractic care. And then also, if you could delve in, because this would be great for not only me but listeners as well, is what kind of recommendations you make for the patients depending on what they come in to see you with.
Yeah, definitely. So going through the process of, kind of opening the practice, a lot more, challenges reared their head. You commented before how you said it was great that we had the patience to really do the practice right. And, I was kind of chuckling behind the microphone because that patience was, somewhat not planned as well.
Oh, okay.
We wanted to be bootstrapping. We wanted to be, just like get our doors open and we'll start building, this dream. But then kind of each step we got in, we realized, we're going to be taking more time than we thought. We're going to be spending more money than we thought. And, ultimately, we did, create our dream practice, and it took us probably about 9 months from when we, first looked at the space that we were going to lease to the time that our doors were open. And in that time, we were spending, hours and hours every day, coming up with all the systems. We were already coaching at that point with Life by Design. So that was really good because we had some direction, in which to move and, how to do, bring someone through day one and day two in the office, and all the checkpoints, how doing progress exams and doing re-exams, and getting people recommitted long term. And so that we're designing all our systems around that and around all the Life by Design steps and what we're going to do for our workshops. And so when we did open on day one, because we did have all that prep time, all that was in place. We had our file folder full of, all the paperwork for each stage, even though we hadn't, even seen a single person yet. And then, the first year was very much finding out what worked from that design, what didn't work, and tweaking all the steps along the way. So we just had our first year anniversary there on February 1st, and we had a party for our practice members. So it was a really good time to sit back and reflect on what we had accomplished in that first year. But it was basically a giant science project to see what worked.
Yeah, but that's practice, right? That's why they call it practice. But the entire time it's just you're trying to figure it out, and you do this thing and it worked, but maybe not as well as you thought, so you tweak it a little bit and keep working on it. And I just want to jump on this because something that I've really found in my first year of practice is having those steps at the beginning when you're bringing the person in and taking them from, say, never receiving chiropractic care, or maybe never receiving chiropractic care from a wellness perspective, having previously seen a chiropractor for pain, and walking them through those first couple of days, through that examination, through the report, and kind of setting the table for, right, how long is this going to take? If you really want to achieve wellness, this is going to be a longer term process. And definitely for me, so I initially only started setting, like monthly recommendations for care, for example. Whereas now I'm far more likely to make 6-month, 18-month recommendations for care. So is that something that you had from the beginning in your practice, or what kind of talks? I mean, obviously talking generalities, but that was something that really made a big difference for me in my learning experience for the last year.
Yeah, definitely. And so we designed our process around the lipo-design chiropractic method, which is going to deliver awesome chiropractic care. At the same time, take them through each of those other steps of Eat, Move, and Think by Design. So we wanted to do that in a systematic way. So with most new people coming in, again, our assessment is focused on finding, subluxation or neurological interference as a result of, past injuries and chronic injury to the spine. So what we're looking for and what they come in, what the, prospective patient comes in with as far as a complaint, aren't necessarily linked. So, we spend that first day in that consultation, finding out what they want to achieve, and then finding out what their, concerns are, going through those in a detailed way, and then taking them through what we do in our process. So, we take them through that. It is going to be a longer term process. Our initial set of recommendations are typically anywhere from 8 to 20 weeks. And that's, looking at starting that process of correction. So definitely not, achieving full correction and wellness in that time period, but, really beginning the process, especially, if they're over 20 years old and have never had chiropractic, then, their skeletal structure is, it's going to take a while to change, as you know.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
and something I really want to jump on.
So that definitely,
because I think it's really important. Something that you mentioned that we might have just glossed over is setting up progress exams. And Jamie Richard on his podcast, which I'll link in the description below, has done a bunch of material on this, and it's excellent. And I think it's really important if you are wanting to make long-term recommendations for patients is have measurable outcomes to actually say, how much better they're doing, rather than just relying on just your subluxation indicators, is actually having important measures. So what are some of the measures for you, and what are the outcomes that you're looking for your patients?
Yeah, so we do a structural exam using digital posture. So we take a couple posture photos to get, a sense of what's happening with their the alignment of their spine and how that's affecting, their overall weight-bearing posture. And then from there, we take them through, any relevant orthopedic or neurological indicators, depending on the severity of their case. And then, but, probably for about 60 to 70% of people that come in don't, generally have a pain complaint. So, then we move on to the subluxation station from the CLA. So we're looking at thermography, SEMG or muscle tone and balance, and then HRV, their overall stress and adaptability scores. And what we find in practice is that, using those measures, by the time we do that, we expect certain measures to change as we do progress 1 and progress 2, which is, a kind of about month 1 and month 2. And then as we do the complete clinical reexamination, then we're looking, we expect there to be a change in those neurological indicators as well, especially depending on where they're starting. If they're severely challenged, we expect, quicker resolution, as opposed to somebody who comes in with a core score of 85. Results might be a bit different depending on how their body's adapting. But what we find is about 75% of people, their core scores move up, all their indicators move up, their posture improves, and everyone's happy. And then about 25%, the score either stays the same, sometimes goes down, but we do find improvement in other areas like the posture, the less subluxation indicators, objective changes. Actually, it's kind of interesting looking back at the stats and everything in that way.
Absolutely. It's something I'd really love to jump on, because I really am fascinated by core scores and the CLA technology. We use thermography in my practice, but we don't use any of the other tools that they incorporate. So how do you use it in your practice? Like what's the discussion that you have around core scores with your patient?
It's hard to understand what exactly is how the subluxation, because it can, most oftentimes it is, non-symptomatic. And so to understand that there is a problem there that is measurable, or the effects are measurable, whether they feel something going on or not, and depending on what they want to achieve for their own health, whether they want to be, they're good with being good, or if they want to truly be excellent, then, we have kind of different streams of care that will help them to achieve, their goal. And obviously their goals can change over time as well. So that's why, we do try and check in at least once a month or once every 2 months with the scanning technology in order to, measure the changes. And then when you are taking, long-term care of people and you're seeing them over, we have people that did start with us on day 1 still in the practice. So now they've been with us, a little bit over a year.
That's
and,
amazing. Awesome.
People face different challenges throughout the year, or, whether that's an injury or, getting the flu, or, different times that they need more support, from us. And, so kind of figuring that all out along the way, as well, and, how to give the best care and remain consistent with the care, throughout time. So they can, live the most optimal and extraordinary life that they can.
That is awesome. And speaking about living an extraordinary life, what are the things that you do not only to improve your quality of life, but also get yourself out there in the community? Like, I know one thing that means pretty obvious is CrossFit. And how have you felt that that's benefited not only you on a personal level, but also from a practice level?
Yeah. So when we were at the college, we really pushed to get that gym built that is still currently there. So with all the CrossFit gear and everything you needed for functional training. And at that time, we were training pretty heavily down there. I just saw my health improve greatly from that. Even from a chiropractic perspective, when I came to school, I'd just gone through a process of, getting my health back on track. So I had gone from having little muscle mass and, a little too much fat mass to dropping a lot of that fat, but also not having much muscle left. So it's almost, from first year on, rebuilding myself back up. And at that time, I noticed I was subluxated often. When I went to go get checked by, my student intern, I was being adjusted almost every visit, and, even going in 2 and 3 times a week. So, it's kind of asking myself those questions, like, do I need to get checked 3 times a week forever? Like, and how is that going to be feasible? And, if I'm just like other people coming into my practice, how is that going to be feasible for them in a long-term care solution? But then I noticed once I started actually lifting heavy weights and putting more muscle mass on, changing my diet in order to meet my energy demands at that time, then I noticed my spine was actually way more stabilized, and sitting in class got easier. is focused a lot more on mobility. So actually, working with the soft tissues around the spine and around other parts of my body to make sure, my body was moving in an optimal way. And so I just saw those changes for myself. I started holding my, adjustments more often, and for longer. And, so then that just reinforced, again, all those steps I was doing for myself. So now when I make recommendations, I know that process I went through, and I know the end road and the end game. So, it's much easier for me to be diligent with, making those recommendations and working to hold people accountable.
Definitely. It's always so much easier to speak from experience. To say, I've gone through the same thing and I know what this is like.
And to be honest, that's probably a story I don't share with the practice members enough, or at least not in that detail.
Yeah. But and obviously you still do CrossFit today?
Yeah. So we partnered with a gym here. That's actually, you can see the gym from our front door. It's just kind of around the corner from us.
Awesome.
So it's really good. We actually researched a bunch of the CrossFit gyms, and other functional trainers when we got back to Vancouver, and we were looking for a gym to partner with. And, the one that was actually closest to us ended up being the one that did have a big focus on mobility and a big focus on safety. And the coaches were really diligent about, not letting you, if you were lifting heavy with sloppy form, they would make sure that you brought your weights down, so you're doing it in a much safer manner.
Nice.
And they'll even tell you in class, they're like, you're not the people competing for regionals. You're not, a pro athlete. You're a regular person that is sometimes athletic. So
yeah.
don't get your ego doesn't have to be, flying around, in order to be in here. So kind of just calm down, lift your weights, get healthier, and, live a better life.
Yeah, which is a really good approach, because that's what a lot of people often criticize CrossFit for being, is it's just about throwing around big weights. But really, if you look at the core of it, it's not at all.
No, and the gym that we partner with as well, they said, they definitely became a CrossFit gym because it was in, and they definitely get lots of business because they're a CrossFit gym. But the head coach and the trainer there, explicitly says, if CrossFit stops being a trend that attracts people, then we're just going to be, they intentionally branded themselves with a different brand so they could, have something to fall back on. It's like, nice. I'm always going to be a coach. I'm always going to be a trainer. We're always going to kind of do it in this way. So, how do I have long-term leverage and sustainability as well?
Definitely, which I really think kind of touches on that thing of, surrounding yourself with like-minded people who are also out to achieve, great things like yourself. We want to make the world a healthier place, a better place for people to be in. So how do I surround myself with people who are wanting to do the same thing? Exactly.
And that's exactly what we did, branding the Powerhouse, and not, we wanted it to be consistent with our practice focus. So, with, the Life by Design method, the chiropractic aspect of that is called Power by Design. And, really, that process of enhancing that brain to body communication, through the correction of the luxation of the spine. So, we wanted the brand and the name and everything, every touch point in the practice to really follow the values of the practice. And that's something we had set out, in our original business plan. So, what are the practice's top 4 to 6 values? And everything that we do in our practice has to reflect those values. And, that's one of the things we do in Think by Design for people personally, is to set your 25-year vision in your life and, make that consistent with your values. And so, your vision becomes what you're striving towards, and your values are kind of the rules you follow to get there.
That is awesome. And speaking about Powerhouse, and by the way, I love the name. Like when I first saw that pop up, I was like, that is genius on so many levels. But thinking about Powerhouse, and also obviously having the new year come through recently and the 1-year anniversary of the practice, what are you wanting to kind of grow into over, say, the next 5 to 10 years within that practice?
Exactly. That brings me back to that last stream of thought.
Yeah.
So we named it the Powerhouse because, we didn't want it to be on us. So it was kind of an anti-ego move. We didn't want it to be Lanoue, chiropractic, or Brian and Taya's awesome chiropractic practice.
Yeah.
We had that bigger vision that, we want the Powerhouse brand to be, a strong brand for chiropractic, in Vancouver and wherever else, that may take us. So, we definitely wanted to create a sustainable model that, we can practice at. But the dream is to have, bring on associates, train them in our system and, help young docs, in the future, even open their own practices and, label that under the Powerhouse branding. So, Vancouver is kind of a funny city because it's it's quite cliquey. So people don't really leave, it's a big city, but people don't really leave their small neighborhoods.
Okay.
So, you'll see a lot of local restaurants and they'll have, 4 and 5 locations around the city, instead of, having one massive place where everyone might come.
Interesting.
And so even in healthcare, we see the same thing. Cause if you listen to a lot of chiropractic speakers, they'll tell you, don't expand locations, expand your reach by, you being, the principal doc, make this huge, 3,500, 5,000 square foot office space, hire associates, have 10 associates and this whole thing. And if you're going to build a big practice, kind of do it in that model. But I don't really see that working, in the community that we're in. And, it'd be better to have, 10 different Powerhouse locations in, like a 500 to 1,000 square foot space with, 1 to 4 doctors working, at each practice and, serving their respective populations.
Definitely. Which, honestly makes a lot of sense to me because as a chiropractor, you want people to see you regularly. So you have to be accessible. And if you have only one location where everyone has to drive to get to you, that makes it a lot more difficult. Rather than saying, go to your local Powerhouse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that makes it gives you better leverage for advertising around the city and doing all that stuff as well.
Definitely. And that's something that I'd love to talk with you about because I think you do it really, really well as marketing chiropractic because it's obviously something I'm quite passionate about and I see it done wrong so much. And I think you're doing it in a really, really wonderful way in terms of sharing patient stories, kind of setting out the life by design principles. Look, I'm leading this life as well. I'm one of you. I'm not the kind of big egotistical chiropractor. Everyone has to follow me, but we're all in this kind of journey together. And do you kind of feel like that just comes naturally to you, or is that quite calculated?
It's very calculated. I appreciate the feedback, by the way, but it's something that's been planned out from the start. And
cool.
Again, just going through that, introspective phase of actually setting your values, setting your vision, setting what you want, makes it a lot easier. Sometimes, you still some decisions you have to make in the moment that, you're like, should I do this? Should I take this opportunity? You still evaluate it, but at the end of the day, you have to know if those opportunities or those things that you're doing do fall within your values. So, being in integrity, is a huge value for us. Simplicity, and being another one. So everything, not only the processes and the practice have to be simple, but more importantly, we want the experience for the practice members coming in to seem simple. So even we did a bit of the chiropractic business finishing school, and one thing Patrick Giancempo talks a lot about in that, simplicity on the far side of complexity. So there's an old quote that goes like, I wouldn't give a hoot for simplicity for the sake of simplicity, but I would give my life for simplicity on the far side of complexity. So again, that goes back to how we designed our systems, and there's a million things happening to make the practice member experience smooth and make it seem just easy for them to go through everything, even though we might be running around in the background, like crazy people. But the trick and the magic is not to let them see any of that.
Exactly.
So we're spending extra time working, behind closed doors and, working after hours. That's okay. That's part of the job. But, we want everything to be, as simple for them as possible, and make it as easy for them to say yes and have a great experience, receiving care here.
Absolutely. I think that's, you said the exact word that I was thinking of, and it's experience. And I think something that's really important for patients to have is an experience when they come to the chiropractor's office. And they get that with you guys. They walk in, they can see that you have integrity and you have simplicity in your lines, but it's very elegant, like the photos that I've seen of your practice. So they get that feeling instantly. And it seems like that's pretty consistent through all of the different things that you do. This is about an experience and cultivating that experience for that patient. And I love that you said it's all calculated, because I so think that's important. I think a lot of people go, it just comes naturally. You just be flamboyantly you, and everyone just loves that, right? I think it's really important to actually think about it and decide, what is the experience that I want my patient to have? Do they want to come in and feel, loved and welcome in this warm environment where they know that they feel like they belong? Even though behind the scenes I might be freaking out and rushing around and trying to do too many things at once. But what's important is how that patient feels as they enter the office, go through, get adjusted, and leave.
Yeah, and then the branding experience of that whole thing has paid off, tenfold, in that, most people who do come in, have read through all the marketing materials through the website. They know it's going to be a process, and it's going to be different than what they've experienced in the past. There's over 300 chiropractors in the city of Vancouver, so there's lots of people doing.
Wow, that's higher than I thought. That's a lot.
Yeah, so probably 80% of them are doing, a lot of that rehab work and seeing people, kind of one visit at a time, and really focused on pain relief. And that's for the schools and stuff that they went to, and the experiences those people have had. That's the model they've been brought up in, and a lot of people run successful practices in that way. But again, it's just not what we do. So when people actually walk into our office or send us a consult request, in one of those two experiences, a lot of people tend to say that, this place is different. I've never seen anything like this from a chiropractor.
Nice. Cool.
And, they expect, it's gonna be different from what they expect. So it makes it easier when we have that conversation about, okay, these are your goals, and this has been your past experience. You've seen a chiropractor for the last 10 years, but you've seen them once a year for those 10 years. Are you healthier now than 10 years ago? And they say, well, no,
I'm
my
not.
health's been declining. I have my daily headaches, and this challenge and that challenge, and you go through the whole list, and so you say, this is going to be different from what you expect. Again, it's going to take longer. The investment's going to be heavier, but at the same time, the results that people experience here, seem miraculous, but they seem miraculous because, of where the people are starting. So, follow the steps, follow your care plan, and then start implementing all these other things. And, you can surely live, that extraordinary life that, we're saying you can.
I think that's beautiful, Brian. That's enough said. I think that's a beautiful way to end it. If anyone is wanting to reach out to you, they're wanting to get in touch, they're really inspired by what you were talking about today, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Definitely on social media. You can check out the Powerhouse Chiropractic on Facebook, the Powerhouse Vancouver, I believe, on Instagram. If you want to get in touch with me or Taya, it's I'm Brian by Design on Instagram, and Taya's Dr.Thea, Thea. We're always open to, answer questions. Our emails are on the website, thepowerhousevancouver.com. And, you're always great to talk with, prospective students. We're actually having, I don't know when this particular podcast will air, but, next week we're having, Dr. Phil McMaster in the office, to do, the recruiting event, which, since we've opened our doors here, we've had hosted the last 3 recruitment events in Vancouver. So, it's been a great way to give back. So if there's anybody listening to this in Canada that has questions about traveling to New Zealand to go to school, we're definitely open to answering those. And we get those requests fairly often.
That is awesome. I'll leave all those links in the show notes below as well. So if anyone wants to just quickly scroll down and click on them, that's easy as. Brian, thank you so much for that. It was really inspirational hearing you talk and getting more information about your story, which I didn't know. So it was really cool.
Awesome. And it was great catching up with you as well, Ben. And hopefully I won't be as long.
Champion. Thanks a lot, man.
Before we talk again.
Look forward to it. Take care.
Posting pictures of yourself on the internet out on the terrace. We breathe in the air of this small town on our own, cutting glass with the thrill of it, getting drunk on the past we were living in.
Thank you for all the support you've been showing this platform. If you have any ideas for future episodes or you'd like to be involved, send me a message through the website or your preferred social media. For the resources mentioned in this episode, check out the show notes or thechirosation.com. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend and leave a comment on Facebook. Now go out there and start a Chirosation today.
If we go down, then we go down together. They'll say you could do anything. They'll say that I was clever. If we go down, then we go down together. We'll get away with everything. Let's show them we are better.